Always happy to talk Zendaya, and Zendaya's new film is Challenges, a tennis drama from Italian director Luca Guadagnino. Let's have a look at a clip.
What are you going to do now?
Unfortunately, my only skill in life is hitting a ball with a racket.
I want you to be my coach.
I want you to be my coach.
How often does this happen? Going after the same girl? Come here.
Which one of us?
Zendaya is back on our screens. I get to talk about Zendaya. I'm very happy to talk about Zendaya. Her new film, Challenges, is a big roll of the dice for her career. It is a very adult drama, which is set against the world of tennis. And if this film achieves nothing else, it does do the unachievable. It makes tennis interesting. I'm not a tennis fan at all, but the way it is, the match play is shot by Italian director Luca Guadagnino. It brings an energy and a pulsating sort of drive to the game of tennis that I had never seen before. What enhances that is the energy between our three lead actors in this one. The aforementioned Zendaya, she plays Tashi Donaldson, we meet her as a young prodigy very early in her career, when she becomes enamored with two young tennis players, Art Donaldson, played by Mike Feist, who we recently saw in West Side Story, and Patrick Zweig, played by terrific young actor Josh O'Connor. Now, Art has a determined trajectory. They're best buddies, but Art's very much the focused, athletic type who really wants to take his career far, and Patrick is kind of a goofball, a raw talent like the game has rarely seen, but a bit flaky. And Zendaya, as a young person, manages to have flings with both of them. Now, this sets in motion this menage a trois type emotional triangle that builds in momentum through the movie. The way the story is told, and you're not really fully aware of this until the end of the movie, is like a tennis game. There's a back and forth between the friends, Tashi, who gets between them, their careers, and it's how they all interact as a unit, and the rhythms that their life, as their lives unfold, that infuses this film with this really pulsating sort of dramatic energy that is coupled by the tennis sequences. A lot of talk has been made about a couple of very sexy scenes in this film. They're there, and Guadagnino's European background gives those a sort of freshness and their own type of energy that you don't often see in an American film. To say that they're a little bit blue and a little bit steamy is going overboard. They might be for a mainstream American film. They're not at all for anybody who watches international cinema. They're kind of sweet in the way the much talked about threesome scene unfolds. There's a very funny joke that puts an end to that threesome scene as well, which sort of brought the house down when I saw this a couple of weeks ago at the Australian premiere. But what you have is this really captivating, really interesting adult drama about these energized but damaged individuals. And what unfolds is a terrific piece of entertainment. It hopefully is not sort of dragged down by the fact that it is about tennis, because you can count on one hand the great tennis movies of lore. It's just not a sport that lends itself to big screen interpretation. But when you have it driven by these three great actors and the characters they portray, Challenges doesn't pose any kind of challenge at all. It's a great bit of big screen adult entertainment. So,
okay, Simon, it seems like you've opened the door here. Let's do it. Top 5 tennis movies. Okay, number 5, I'm going to say Battle of the Sexes. Number 4, let's say Wimbledon. Number 3, Borg versus McEnroe. Yeah, let's do it. Number 2, The Royal Tenenbaums. Number 1, King Richard.
All good tennis movies, fine films all. I would add to that comedian Bert Convey's 1980 film Racket, in which he played a Beverly Hills pro who beds a whole lot of the Beverly Hills elite housewives. It's a terrible film, but it was from that sort of blue. You know those old British films, Confessions of a Window Cleaner, those sort of movies? This is what Racket was like.
Sorry, Simon, you just added it to the list of movies that were on the best, and then suddenly you're like, it's not a good movie. Like, what is it, Simon?
It's
This
quite
feels like a
the
tennis match in your brain right now.
it's quite the relic of the period. Anyone who knows Bert Convy, he had the original sort of curly 70s hair. He became a game show host and staple for many, many years. His one shot at big screen stardom was Racket. It's a terrible film, but I love watching it. It's probably available on YouTube. But yeah, no, look, there's been some great tennis movies. Those that take on a tennis movie usually have something interesting to say about the game and the people behind it, as we saw with King Richard. I never saw Wimbledon. Despite being a Kirsten Dunst fan, I never got around to seeing the Wimbledon. That's one still to do on the list, but the others are all great movies. And you will, of course, add Challenges there as well, which is maybe the best of them all.
Yeah. Sorry, just getting back to Challenges before we move on. I haven't seen this yet. I'm actually just a couple of hours away from getting to sit down in a cinema to go and watch this thing. Obviously, my enthusiasm is now tempered as apparently it's less sexy than I'd hoped, but whatever. Look, when I was watching the trailer for it, what really struck me was I was watching these three young actors who've been very much sort of typecast as being, well, particularly in the case of Zendaya, sort of high school, so just after high school aged. Whereas here we're actually seeing them as young adults in a movie which is about young adults being young adults and actually being mature people out in the world. And how freaking refreshing is this that we're actually getting to see this outside of genre movies? Like young actors are always sort of ghettoed into being in either teen college comedy dramas or, you know, rom-coms on Netflix. Like there just seems to be so few opportunities for this kind of a film to be out and about.
I think that's a great point to make. You're absolutely right. This is all three of these actors and their characters are at points in their career where things could go right off the rails, or things could go exactly as we all hope for them, or fate could step in and in the case of a couple of these characters, horrible injuries sort of befall them. But you're absolutely right. We don't get to see these young adults go through legitimate adult dramas in their lives in cinema anymore. And hopefully this age group will respond to it and come back to the movies and check out a serious film, but a serious film starring a huge actress like Zendaya and these two great young actors, Mike Faist and Josh O'Connor. It's a turning point for all of them.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Simon, I wanted to have a bit of a brief chat, and we won't go too deep into this because I think a lot of people have probably already seen this one, so let's talk a bit generally about it. It's a new Prime Video series called Fallout.
Can you tell me what's happened in the last 200 years?
Holy shit. You're an actual vault dweller.
I am.
I thought all you dipshits were dead. What you're doing is insane.
I don't set the world.
It isn't like the vault out there. It's big.
Fallout is 2024's latest video game adaptation. Let's start again. Fallout is the latest video game adaptation brought to the screen. This in the way of a, 8-episode series on Prime Video. This is based on the Fallout franchise. This has been a pretty popular video game series for quite a few years now. And this is, I think, maybe the challenge with video game adaptations. So, video games, generally, the narrative structure of it's getting stronger. Like, there's no real argument that some of the best storytelling is happening within the video game space these days. But for a video game narrative, and at least like the concept of it to be successful, it operates in an entirely different way than what you really expect from a movie or a TV show. You can, with a video game, lean a little bit more into genre expectation and subversion of that, as well as homage, and be able to do things within your video game, which is quite clearly speaking to the movies and TV shows that we've loved over the years, and incorporating into your world while giving it a bit of a sort of fresh spin. The thing is that when you adapt that back to television, suddenly it's kind of like an echo of an echo, and it doesn't really quite feel entirely authentic. So, the best video game adaptations are the ones of which are able to take a look at this echo of an echo and still be able to find new stories and a fresh way into telling the tale. Watching the first episode, and sorry, just a bit of an example, The Last of Us, which was very well received on HBO last year. That was a show which it was based on the video game, which was very much just brings to the screen a pretty traditional zombie narrative. We'd kind of seen a lot of that before. The video game injected a lot of humanity into it, and so that's kind of what gave it its freshness. And it was interactive humanity, because as a gamer, you're playing the characters that are going through some pretty terrible stuff on screen, and that's being backed up with cutscenes. Okay. But you take it to Fallout, where suddenly we're playing around with post-apocalyptic drama, which we've seen on screen many times before, and it's playing with a lot of stuff. I'd say the actual sort of content of this is not entirely different to things that we've seen many, many times on a screen. But where I think I found a bit of freshness with Fallout is Jonathan Nolan, who is directing this and not writing, which I thought was a bit interesting. He's come off Westworld, and he is, I guess, maybe playing around with the structure a little bit more. When you watch these early episodes of Fallout, which is very much it seems almost like an anthology, but eventually by the end of the second episode, you've got most of the characters sort of being brought together. As this is happening, he's really playing around with almost a non-linear structure, and we really are seeing this interesting world from below, from above, from history, and it's kind of all melding together. Where the success of this one is that as a piece of television, it's really engaging and just structurally interesting and grabs you from the outset. I'd say the storyline itself is really nothing sort of especially fresh. It's just a lot of sort of weirdo post-apocalyptic here. Apocalypsia? Is that a word we're going to introduce into the lexicon?
With that Maybe. Word, yeah. It should be a word.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's becoming a genre upon itself. So, like, there's nothing sort of new from any of that. It's just a lot of weirdness. And if anyone saw the Apple TV Plus drama from last year or the year before, Hello Tomorrow, which was very much sort of playing around with the idea of if the look and feel of the 1950s hadn't finished but had carried on for a couple of decades to follow, like, what would it look and feel like? This kind of just felt like of a piece of that. So there's that, but I still found like just incredible freshness and vitality just purely through structure, through the use of audio and music, and it just really felt alive in a way I hadn't expected, and was very pleased, because if it wasn't for that, I think this might be a bit flatter on screen than it is. But look, audiences are loving it, and Simon, I was wondering what your thoughts were.
Yeah,
I didn't want to properly review this one because I feel that everyone's kind of already seen this. So what's the point?
Yeah, no, look, that's fair enough. And I have seen the first couple of episodes. That first episode, as you say, does feel like a sort of a multi-character anthology arc for several of the leads in this. I think it runs for like 78 minutes, so it's almost like a mini movie in that regard. But it is a show which, and it's interesting that you use that phrase "echo of an echo," because for me there is no echo here. I don't play games, and I don't know the Fallout sort of backstory as far as the game's concerned. So I literally came to this as just a new TV series that I was keen to see, and the fact that it stars the great Walton Goggins, who we know from Tarantino's Hateful Eight and a whole lot of other great stuff. And
Simon, come on. This is your film bias playing. Walton Goggins, who we all know from The Shield and has been in other things like Hateful Eight. Come on, like, The Shield is absolutely Walton Goggins.
And other things like Hateful Eight. Okay, we'll go with that. But it also stars Ella Purnell, who I'm a big fan of from the Yellow Jacket series. So this had a whole lot of boxes ticked for me right from the outset. The fact that it is post-apocalyptic sci-fi drama. It has that terrific opening sequence when the bomb drops, and that is in itself a great way to kick off the series. So yeah, I was pretty much hooked on this after that first 78 minutes, and I'm super keen to get through the rest. So, it did win me over. And the point you make that the post-apocalyptic thing has been done over and over is absolutely right. But it is that, as they did with The Last of Us and punch it up with real characters and real human drama, or they give it a fresh coat of paint with a new sort of take on the world as it exists hundreds of years into the future. I was convinced by what they did with Fallout. I think it's a really sort of complete vision of a future time.
Yeah, one of the really fun aspects of this is the supporting cast and the various guest stars that come through. So you do have Walton Goggins as a lead who's really getting the lion's share of attention around this one, as he plays the ghoul. But there's other people. So Cole McLaughlin plays a pretty prominent role, especially in the very first episode, and the show is very much structured around a quest to get him back. he's been kidnapped. Great seeing Kyle MacLachlan in this, and he really fits the sort of aesthetic of the show with his increasingly rounder head, but, certainly he's still got that strong jawline, and, there's just something about his face which is just so, gosh, you just want to see it on screen all the time.
But then it's just like all these... Blue Velvet. It's been a long time since that classic.
Yeah, look, so there's other people like Zach Cherry, who I'm always excited to see on screen. But then it's just sort of populated with all these other sort of great character actors that we've seen in a whole bunch of things over the years. So second episode is a very sort of strong showcase for Michael Emerson. You've got other people in here like Fred Armisen crops up, but he crops up in everything, so that's not all that exciting. Matt Berry's in there, Mackenzie Williamson, Michael Rappaport plays a role. I was excited to see Dale Dickey in the second episode. But the person that I think is really important to watch out for is Eric Estrada plays a role in the series. So, folks, exciting supporting cast.
So the Estrada Renaissance has finally begun thanks to Fallout. A lot of points we raised in that review, and I think we should roll that into what will be a very interesting intermission.